take me through, like, I have the documents in front of me, but you're much better at presenting kind of, if you, like, first, if you're not vaccinated in the NFL, right, you got to be tested daily, right? They came out and they said, hey, if you're not vaccinated in the NFL, you have to be tested daily, and basically you can't leave the hotel. You can't. You gotta kind of go back under the strict quarantine orders. Is that accurate?
I would say the best way I can put it is the protocols are similar to how it was last season across the league when the vaccines had not been available yet. Okay,
and then if you do get vaccinated, then what happens?
I think you have obviously a lot less limitations and a lot more potential freedoms. I will say this, though, as we've found out, just because you have the vaccine doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to test positive. But I believe that there's a more significant difference. I will say this, for example, at Dallas Cowboys training camp, they still have those connection monitors that they had in the bubble to make sure, for example, that media members do not stay within closer to 6 feet of one another, which is actually a pretty good guideline under any circumstances, as you well know. But if you're unvaccinated, the sort of limitations you're under are more pronounced.
Okay, so look, according to so more than 78% of the players league-wide have at least one shot. 14 clubs have at least 85% of the players vaccinated. In today's memo, vaccinated players or staff who test positive, right? Okay, remember, this is, if you're vaccinated and you test positive, you can return to duty after 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. For non-vaccinated players who test positive, the 2020 protocol is made in place requiring a 10-day isolation. In essence, the NFL is telling its clubs to up their efforts to convince players to get vaccinated. Otherwise, the burden of risk falls on the team should the outbreak occur. So what you're having is nearly all clubs have vaccinated 100% of their Tier 1 and Tier 2 staff. Clubs have put appropriate protocols into place. Last few staff have not been vaccinated. Consistent with the guidelines given last April, as of today, more than 75% of the players in the process of being vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera. If a vaccinated person is asymptomatic, he or she will be isolated and contact tracing will promptly occur. The positive individual will be permitted to return to duty after 2 negative tests at least 24 hours apart. Unvaccinated players, the protocols from 2020 remain in place. You get 10 days. A person who had previous COVID infection will be considered fully vaccinated 14 days after they had at least one of the 2 approved vaccines. So the idea is this. I totally understand if you're sitting there going like, what's the point of getting vaccinated if I can still test positive? Okay, but there's a lot of other benefits to it. I mean, the first is whether it's the Delta variant or the Lambda variant or any of these other things, the more people are vaccinated, the less variants that you'll find. Secondly, as has been reported, there are almost no people. It's not like what happens is we read the statistics and we'll say, well, there's still people that are hospitalized now. Very, 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 very small margin of people. Okay, it's like 1% of people are hospitalized from this thing, and less than 1% of that are vaccinated people. It makes it less likely for you to get it. If you get it, it makes it a lot less severe, and it goes away quicker, right? And oh yeah, by the way, if you get vaccinated, you get back to kind of living your life within reasonable means. So this is what the new normal looks like. And I think there are some things put in place there to where, yeah, like you might test positive again. All right. But you're going to test negative much sooner. And once you test negative 2 consecutive days, you're back. As opposed to you don't get vaccinated, we're going old school on you. And I think that's kind of the best that you can do.